After the declaration of the 2022 elections, the Azimio coalition contested the poll. And of course, you remember that election declared President William Ruto as the President of the Republic of Kenya. Later, the Azimio coalition tied that with the increasing cost of living to call for demonstrations across the street. And in order to tame the demonstrations, President William Ruto, in a bipartisan move, announced the formation of a bipartisan committee that, of course, authored a report that was released about 2 weeks ago. Giverson Minor looks at the events that shaped the release of that National Dialogue report.
I, Wafula Chebukati, Chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, hereby declares that Ruto William Samoei.
August 15, 2022, William Ruto is declared president-elect by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission at the Bomas of Kenya, following one of the most competitive general elections of August 9, 2022. But a day later, on August 16, 2022, Raila Odinga, his running mate Martha Karua, and other Azimio leaders in a press conference rejected the election results, citing a split in the IBC.
Totally and without reservations, reject the presidential results announced yesterday by Mr. Chebukati.
The IBC split had pitted Chebukati's team of 3 against the famous Cherera 4, who, through the then IBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, disowned the outcome of the results, saying the then IBC Chair Wafula Chebukati broke the law on poll results. This boosted the Azimio's bid to mount a spirited fight in the Supreme Court. However, in their ruling on September 5, 2022, the Supreme Court judges established that William Ruto had been validly elected and the elections had met the required constitutional threshold.
We declare the election of the first respondent as president-elect to be varied under Article 143 of the Constitution.
I, William Samoei Ruto.
This paved the way for President Ruto, then President-elect, to be sworn in as duly elected 5th President of the Republic of Kenya, together with his deputy Rigathi Gachagua at Kasarani Stadium on September 13, 2022, succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta. But Raila was adamant that his win had been stolen, and in March 2023, he called his supporters for mass action after a 14-day ultimatum to the government lapsed. Raila's successful rallying of supporters around the disputed election coincided with an increase in the cost of living due to the new tax regimes and removal of fuel subsidy. The hikes in fuel, sugar and maize flour prices fueled public anger towards the government. The opposition capitalized on this sentiment, portraying Ruto's administration as insensitive and failing to fulfill the pro-poor Kenya Kwanza campaign promises. The subsequent public protests in Raila's strongholds led to property destruction and the looting of businesses, derailing the country's economic progress, which was already being battered by soaring inflation. Police action against protesters resulted in injuries and deaths. The weekly protests lasted for weeks, with religious leaders and foreign missions mounting pressure on Raila Odinga and President Ruto to initiate dialogue. In an address to the nation on April 2, 2023, at State House, President William Ruto proposed for a bipartisan parliamentary engagement to address the opposition's concerns, among them the recruitment of new IBC commissioners.
I urge my brother Raila Odinga and the opposition to call off the demonstrations and to give this bipartisan approach a chance.
The same day, Raila Odinga, in a press conference with other Azimio leaders, announced a decision to call off the demonstrations that was scheduled for the following week. This, he said, was to allow the engagement with the state on the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. He, however, threatened that the twice-weekly protests would resume in a week if there was no meaningful engagement.
In view of the foregoing, we stand down our demonstrations for Monday, that is tomorrow, April 3rd, 2023.
On April 6th, Azimio la Umoja coalition then unveiled a 7-member team for the bipartisan talks with the government side. They included Narok Senator Ledama Olekina, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna, Kitui Senator Enoch Kwambua, Malindi MP Amina Mnyazi, Suba North MP Emilio Odhiambo, Pokot South MP David Kasing, and Rorida MP Otiende Amolo as their chair. Days later, on April 11th, Kenya Kwanza named its team comprising of Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale, Bomet Senator Hilary Kosgei, nominated Senator Esio Kenyeru, Taita Taveta Woman Representative Lydia Haika, Kibwezi West MP Mwengi Mutuse, Elders MP Adan Kinan, and Tharaka MP George Murugara as their chair. However, the talks hit a snag following a disagreement over the composition of the 14-member team. On its part, Azimio said the inclusion of Elders MP Aden Kinan in the talks was in bad faith, claiming he legally belonged to the Azimio coalition but had shifted allegiance to the government. On the other hand, Kenya Kwanza claimed Pokot South MP David Kasing of Coup Party was legally a member of Kenya Kwanza Alliance but had turned a rebel. The government side finally gave in and replaced Aden Kinan with Sakwe MP Dido Rasa of UDA Party. And despite the bipartisan committee agreeing on the terms of engagement, the two sides were staring at a fallout barely a month later after Azimio's side accused the government of failing to honor the demands, among them to stop the process of the recruitment of the IBC commissioners. The persistent disagreements would later see Azimio making true their threats of suspending the talks, dissolution of the committee, and the return of the street demos.
Tutakuwa na mgomo na maandamano siku ya Jumatatu.
Religious organizations and foreign missions again began to mount pressure on the two sides to return to the negotiation table and unlock the deadlock. This would also see famous U.S. Senator Chris Coons fly into the country and separately meet the president and the opposition leader over the matter. Weeks into phase 2 of demos, the two sides again named an extra parliamentary national dialogue committee of 5 members from each side to revisit the talks. Azimio picked Wiper party leader Kalonzo Musyoka as the head of its team, DAP party leader Eugene Wamalwa, National Assembly minority leader Opiyo Wandayi, Malindi MP Amina Mnyazi, and Nyamira Senator Okongo Mogeni. Kenya Kwanza settled on National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and named him a co-chair. Kericho Senator Aaron Cheriot, Embu Governor Cecily Mbarire, Bungoma Woman Representative Catherine Wabilianga, and Yala MP Hassan Omar. A second attempt to resolve the stalemate began on August 14th after Parliament passed a motion to formally recognize the committee. The negotiations would last for 30 days without resolving the contentious issues that now included the housing levy and value-added tax on fuel. The talks, however, shown progress but sought an extension of their mandate from the Parliament for a further 30 days to conclude the talks. Kalonzo and Kimani-led talks called for input from stakeholders and experts in a public participation process. As their mandate ended after 60 days, the team delivered a report, famously called NADCO report, to the President, the opposition leader, and the Parliament for consideration. In the report signed by co-chairs Kalonzo Musyoka of Azimio Coalition and Kimani Ichung'wah of Kenya Kwanza, the committee recommended the evolution of 2022 electoral process, the expansion of the IBC selection panel from the current 7-member to a 9-member panel, the increase of timelines of the Supreme Court to hear and determine a presidential election petition from 14 to 21 days. Legal reforms passed less than 18 months to the general elections become effective in the next electoral cycle. Entrenchment of NGCDA funds into the Constitution, establishment of office of the Leader of Opposition and Prime Minister, and the establishment of the Independent Political Parties Regulatory Commission, responsible for the registration of political parties and their office holders.
I want to congratulate all the teams that were involved in the dialogue process. They have come up with recommendations.
They have disclosed a failure to strike an agreement on Azimio's concerns on the cost of living, including value-added tax on fuel and the housing levy that was heavily rejected by the Azimio coalition. However, as the report awaits implementation, Jubilee Party, headed by retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, and NARC Kenya, led by Martha Karua, have termed the report as a waste of public resources for failing to address the cost of living.
The cost of fuel, which is pushing the cost of living upwards. we want the additional tax of 8% removed.
However, the report has a backing of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, who demand that a referendum must be held to implement the report, a proposal the Kenya Kwanza Alliance has rejected. According to the Center for Multi-Party Democracy chairperson Priscilla Nyokabi, the talks have ensured peace and stability for business to thrive, but the recruitment of the IBC commissioners must be resolved to avoid a constitutional crisis in the 2024 boundaries delimitation. She, however, cautions that the country is not ready for referendum.
I don't think we have a luxury of any more time around implementation of the National Dialogue Report. I think that report should be implemented so that questions like the IBC are then resolved. Even if you do a phased approach, in phase one, we resolve these ones, because even for us, the two-thirds gender rule is also a very pressing matter.
Political analyst Arnold Maliba says the resolution to establish new state offices could be challenged in court.
For public projects, it's quite vigorous. It takes a little bit of much more dialogue than what happens in Parliament. Sometimes we take our dialogue as far as court, where the judiciary has to be the arbiter and have the final word on the conversations we have as a nation.
Kenyans remain optimistic that the national dialogue will find a long-lasting solution to the country's political and governance challenges, and that peace and calm will prevail to provide a conducive environment for businesses to thrive as the country ushers new year of 2024. Give us in mind, KBC Channel 1.